Hi there, this is John Wilkinson again from History Made Easier, and in this presentation I'm going to consider economic matters as a contributing factor in the Vietnamese wars. Now remember, when we consider Vietnam, we have three wars, at least three, to consider. The Vietminh War against the French, the Civil War, and the Vietcong's war against the Americans. The Civil War and the war against the Americans going on simultaneously. So let's see where that takes us. Well, as an imperial power, we wouldn't be surprised to learn that the French set out to exploit Indochina, its cash crops and its natural resources, notably rice, coffee and tea, and rubber and coal. The French also established monopolies on salt, alcohol, and on opium. It led to widespread land seizures and to forced labour on a massive scale and under brutal conditions, which led to high death rates, and it kept the local populations very poor. What also kept people very poor was the heavy tax burden imposed by the French. This included taxes on wages and purchases, and what was called a bodily tax, a tax paid by the male populations from the ages of 13 to 53, with some exemptions. In order to ensure payment, tax cards were issued after payment had been made. Some officials, though, would not report a person's death to force families to continue paying it. The card was also used as an identification card. So, though the fight for independence might take the headlines, we can see economic reasons behind that fight. But what about the Civil War, and so the Vietcong's fight against the Americans too? Well, let's first look at the economic policies of Diem. There was a 5-year plan in 1957, which sounds something the communists would introduce, but it was very different in nature. It encouraged foreign investment. A lot came from America, with government guarantees and low taxes. And it protected local industries with tariffs. Trump would have been proud of them. And agriculture did see a growth in rice production, but the benefits were not shared equally, and land reform was a big issue for the peasantry. And that was not only ignored, but land was often given to the wealthy. So, whilst the administration was riddled with corruption and nepotism, the peasantry remained landless and burdened by taxes. As unrest grew in the late 1950s, Diem introduced agrovilles. These were fortified villages, fortified so as to prevent Vietcong infiltration. But it entailed moving families from their ancestral homes, where the spirits of their family members rested in family plots, either in the family compound or out in the paddy fields. And it placed them in isolated areas. They were exceedingly unpopular. It didn't stop the Americans trying the same thing, though, in the early 1960s with their strategic hamlets. So, if that was Diem's economic policies, what did Ho Chi Minh have to offer? Now, I'm not saying it would necessarily have worked, but what he offered did at least seem more promising. Ho Chi Minh wanted to take Vietnam from a colonial feudal economy to a modern agricultural industrial economy, so that the two were interconnected. Mao had much the same idea. socialist in nature, so that living standards would improve and social progress and cultural advancement would result. Though there would be private enterprise as well as state-owned enterprises. He wanted to develop industries like steel, coal, oil and machine making. Critically, in the middle of the 1950s, where he had control, he initiated a land reform program, distributing land from landlords to poor farmers, a process again influenced by China's land reform. However, serious mistakes were made and there was violence, with many people being mistakenly classified as landlords and subsequently imprisoned or executed. In response to the errors, Ho Chi Minh publicly apologised in 1956, acknowledging the serious errors and starting a rectification of errors campaign to correct the damage. Too late for those executed, but you wouldn't have seen Ziem admitting to mistakes. So, I hope this short presentation has been useful for you. Don't forget that in a question specific to economic factors as a cause of war, the question may well still leave you able to argue that other factors were more important. But I've hopefully shown you that economic matters were indeed a factor in Vietnam. Of course they were. Economies are the base from which everything else in life, schools, healthcare, as well as our own standard of living, is built. Now don't forget that I may have a tutorial slot still available if you are interested in that. Just get your parents to get in touch with me at historymadeeasier@gmail.com and hopefully we'll be able to sort something out. But for now, let me, as always, thank you so much for listening and wish you the very best of luck in your studies. Cheers.